Well, it's January the 7th, the day after two really bad days for us politically, I would say. Uh, First, the defeats in Georgia in the two Senate races, and then this disastrous riot that spun out of the Stop the Steal protest in D.C. yesterday. Um, I think it ought to be pointed out, at least in terms of the riot and the attack on the Capitol, that I tend to think that as we investigate this more, we are going to find that there were a variety of instigators and agitators involved that sort of hijacked a small part of the protest movement, which was, as I would say, was a largely peaceful protest. But and I don't think the left has any place to make any criticism of Trump or the Trump supporters over this sort of thing. Because let's face it, whole parts of the country all last summer, including the White House, were subjected to these sort of attacks. Businesses vandalized and people terrorized, people killed by left-wing agitators, Antifa and BLM. So to sit there and go, well, okay, this is the one that really is, oh, I mean, yeah, they finally go after Congress and now they're all like, oh, you're getting the same kind of stuff everybody else is getting. It's kind of sort of what I feel about it on that level. On the other hand, it was an incredibly unwise thing, except I don't think it was thought out. I think this is the people thinking it out were agitators I don't think are on Trump's side or on the side of the conservative movement at all. I think these are agitators of various sorts, and I think we'll have to find out who they all are as police investigations go forward. There's plenty of film, body camera, security camera, and smartphone footage of the people that did it. I understand some of them have already been identified as Antifa activists. I think looking at the clothing and of some of them, I think some of them probably were militia type groups, and there's all sort of groups out there. By the way, I want to mention also, if you like these videos, sure, give me a like and subscribe and forward anybody else that might be interested. I'm trying to build this site up some. And anything you do. And if you have any comments, please post them. I like comments and see what you have to think. Now, let's get back to this. But like I said, the former Attorney General Bob Barr, back in the summer when they were looking at investigating, said there's a witch's brew of extremist groups out there. Some of them are right wing, some of them are left wing, and some of them are just anarchists. I mean, some of them aren't really affiliated with either side of the political spectrum. They just don't like authority at all. I mean, and so I noticed that they report this morning that explosive devices were found near both the DNC and RNC headquarters. So, like I said, that sounds like more of an anarchist, a plague on all of your houses kind of groups that probably hijacked this thing. And part of it was probably just spontaneous emotion that got overwrought. Everybody's trying to blame President Trump. I do agree that the rhetoric at his speech was a little overheated and all that, and you have to watch out for that. I mean, there were incidents during World War II where some of General Patton's speeches allegedly, and probably did lead to a couple of war crimes that were led to court martials involving the massacre of Italian POWs. So, and obviously nobody elegantly accused Patton of it legally, although some commentators said that if he was held to Nuremberg standards, he might have been. So, you know what I mean? It's always good to be on the winning side, right? But the point is that, which is a big message to anybody that wants to attack the established authorities with physical violence, you're not likely to be on the winning side, and therefore you will feel the pain, so to speak. So I don't condone what happened in any way. I'm totally opposed to it because it's against the interest of what we're doing. I mean, obviously this is horrible. Was destructive to Trump's image and what he's doing. The speeches that were going to be made in favor of the cause he was bringing about election fraud and were basically greatly truncated because of these insane riots, and nobody's paying any attention to what was said, the few that were made, because they're all focusing on videos of people breaking into the Capitol. So I say that whoever did this were not our friends. And in fact, a lot of them I've seen on the social media, I don't think are our friends. I think they're just people that are very angry. And that's that. I don't think they have a rational political agenda, because I don't think they know how to formulate one. I mean, they attack everybody. And, well, there's only two major parties that are successful. And remember, third parties generally hurt the party they're closest to and help the one they're most opposed to. If we had a truly Marxist party out there, it would hurt the Democrats. If you had a truly right-wing party out there, it would hurt the Republicans. Perhaps if you had a truly centrist party, which really was somehow right in the median of the political opinion, it would take a piece out of both of them, then it would just have a random effect. But it probably still wouldn't win. And that's the problem with this. The key thing is to get control and influence of one of the two major parties, as people like the progressives and the Democrat movement have figured out. It would be smart if all conservatives figured that out too. They need to remember that they got to stick with the Republican Party and get control. I mean, randomly primarying people over things that are inevitable is stupid. But there are certain selected people in certain selected situations where it is a good idea. I mean, Lisa Murkowski in Alaska seems to be a target for that kind of thing, because it's a state that normally is Republican conservative, and yet here you have somebody that's behaving like they're in a state like Maine. Now, Collins, on the other hand, shouldn't be, because Collins is about the best Republicans or conservatives can get out of Maine, probably. So you have on a statewide basis, maybe not at the local level. So that kind of gives you an idea on that subject, I think. But the thing I would say about Trump is I mean, he's mad at Vice President Pence. I'm like, what does he seriously expect Pence to do? I mean, if Pence had have done what he's talking about, we'd have had a scene that would have been about as shocking, probably, as the one that actually did occur, where Democrat members of the Congress would have probably charged the podium. Probably not quite as violently, but he might have had to be taken by Secret Service to safety after that. In other words, which I guess would have disrupted the count, all right. But I mean, I don't think in the final analysis it would have changed the ultimate outcome, except probably for his political reputation. And I don't know, it seems like President Trump just doesn't understand this or can't accept these realities. I mean, they have taken it from him. They took it. I mean, when somebody takes something from you, like steals your property, it's gone. And you can call the police, but very rarely do you ever get it back, because if you do, it's probably trashed or something by that time. So, I mean, this is hopefully get the person punished maybe, but even that's probably not more likely than not. In this case, I think that Trump needs to get off this thing and accept that Biden is going to be president. That's why I said that right after the big Supreme Court decision on the Texas lawsuit many weeks back. I said at that point, all real hope of actually getting the office was over, and at that point he needs to acknowledge the outcome. Now, that's not the same thing as concession in the sense of conceding he was fairly defeated. It's to acknowledge that is going to be the outcome. That's a different thing, But I think he should insist on, I would like to see him in a post-office role of actually leading a pretty major national campaign on election reform and investigating these frauds more thoroughly. There just wasn't time in a short space between the election day and December the 14th, the big day for certification, to really get a fair hearing on this, and the courts weren't prepared to entertain it. Now, another thing I'd point out, just looking at the situation today, I think we should completely reject any left-wing attacks on the conservative movement because of what happened. Because, first of all, we don't know that real conservatives were actually the instigators here. And second of all, a crowd can get out of control. I mean, fans of a sports team can riot after they win a game even. So, that's crowd issues, And there were real instigators in this too, and those are the people that need to be singled out and see who they are and what their real motive is. I'm dubious that they're part of any of the major Republican movements. Okay, so the other thing, and like I said about the courts, I said all along, well, look what happened to Senator Hawley's situation just a couple of days ago. You know, as the Supreme Court lives in similar environments, in the residential areas of that thing. I think they were very nervous about actually doing anything that would overturn the election in a very heavily Democrat and Antifa, BLM infested town. I mean, I think there were other reasons. I think another one is that I think they probably feel, and I think they're probably right, because what has happened, exactly what I feared has occurred, of course. The Democrats now have that 50-50 vote in the Senate with Kamala Harris starting on after the 20th. They can do nuclear option changes in the rules and can do a lot of things in principle if they get all the Democrats on board to do it. Now, and I think that there is a sense in which the court feels that to protect the institutions, it's better to kind of lay low for a while till a little left-wing passion blows away in a year or two when things like that are less likely. And I think that's one of the reasons why we've had some adverse decisions from Justice Roberts. I'd also point out, I think it is that said that he fell and hit his head sometime back, a few possible, but anyway, I just said that for being a little snarky there. But we do have 5 other conservatives on the court, and I think as time goes on, they're going to prove very valuable. I believe so. Remember, anything involving courts requires a bit of patience. So anyhow, I guess that kind of lays out the situation as we kind of go into the Biden administration that's coming up now that he actually is president-elect, because he's been certified by the Electoral College and then Congress has done the formalities. So, well, and I thought his pick of Merrick Garland as Attorney General seems to be a pretty good choice for a Democrat. That doesn't sound like a real left-wing firebrand. He is obviously a liberal, but he was somebody that Barack Obama thought he could get through a Republican Senate. So it probably, I get the feeling he's more of a classic liberal than a radical. But we'll find out what happens, I guess, when he takes over the reins of the Justice Department. The head of the Civil Rights Division that was picked sounds a lot more troubling to me. Apparently an anti-police person, and that don't sound too good. So I guess that kind of summarizes what I think about the situation yesterday. I think it's a very sad thing that it occurred. But on the other hand, I mean, I guess Congress got a taste of what a lot of business owners in this country have been getting for some time. And I think it's completely ridiculous for somebody like Joe Biden to claim the moral high ground when he wasn't very actively condemning all the activities in the summer. And I think in the end we're going to find out. I may be wrong here. I think we're going to find out that George Floyd actually died of a drug overdose in reality, and the police were not trying to harm him. They were trying to administer what they thought was the appropriate first aid under those conditions as they awaited the arrival of the EMTs. And maybe I'm wrong here, but I don't. Does it make sense that a police officer, knowing he's being videoed, would try to strangle somebody to death over an 8-minute period in broad daylight? I mean, is the guy completely insane? And my alternate theory is backed up. So by medical evidence that came out, for instance, in the fentanyl gas that was used in the Moscow event. So, but here we have an anti-police person, and so I don't know, maybe they'll end up facing double jeopardy like the people in the Rodney King case. But this is a state of affairs today. But the idea that, people can say, well, violence has no place. Well, my whole life has been full of violence on TV, where political activists of all stripes for all sorts of causes have rioted throughout the 60s on. So, I mean, I'm against it. I think it hurt our cause. I think it hurt Donald Trump to do that. Maybe damaged his potential future as a candidate. But, that you have to. That's why you have to be careful with these events. But I think at the same time, I think that we should stand firm and not run off and fear over it. We're really not to blame for what happened here, I think. Well, anyway, I'm going to close this for now again, and that's sort of my opinion.